A man selling a grill becomes the heavyweight champion of the world again? hmm Cole Sports presents on the daily. Well, how you doing, VIP? It must be 12:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Cole Johnson's on the mic on the Daily Sun Tap, presented by Cole Sports. And you know how we get down on Thursday. And I'm so happy to talk about this particular event because one of my favorite personalities in sports is George Foreman. And he celebrated something on this date that is absolutely huge even now. And talking about George Foreman and this feat is this edition's November 5th, 1994. Now, let me set the scene for you. So the heavyweight ranks at the time in boxing was sort of absent the presence of Mike Tyson. He wouldn't return until the very next year because unfortunately he was incarcerated during that time in Indiana. I won't talk about that. In his place and in his stead were former heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe, former heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield, former heavyweight champion George Foreman, a good up-and-comer boxer named Tommy Morrison, and then the champion of the world, Michael Moorer. Now, Michael Moorer was like that Eagles song. He was the new kid in town. 26 at the time. He'll be 27 the week after this fight took place. He was undefeated. I think he came into the bout 35-0 actually. And he had the right temperament. I mean, he was brimming with confidence. I mean, the dude had confidence, but he wasn't to the point where you wanted to bash him in the face because he was cocky. He wasn't that. He was the right amount of confident, but the right amount of humble at the same time, and with the right amount of intelligence as well. And it didn't hurt that he had former Tyson trainer Teddy Atlas beside him, one of the brightest minds in boxing history, and great corner guy. I mean, never steered any boxer wrong really in terms of boxing strategy. That's one side. The other side, the lovable George Foreman. Now, we never would have thought, if you were to rewind back into the early 70s, that we would say lovable and George Foreman in the same sentence. Because he was already the heavyweight champion of the world, but he was considered the most feared athlete at the time. People were literally afraid of him. People were so afraid of Muhammad Ali getting hurt when the two of them had their Rumble in the Jungle iconic bout in Zaire, October of 1974. And it was crazy that he was so brutal in the ring. This is the same guy who took a champion in Joe Frazier, who had the title 4 years, and decided to knock him down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the bout. Yeah. Knocked down Joe Frazier 7 times in the bout. Knocked out cold Ken Norton in the second round. I mean, this dude was feared. But when Muhammad Ali regained the heavyweight championship in the aforementioned Rumble in the Jungle bout, which ironically was 20 years before this bout, Foreman was, I guess you could say, humanized. And then he still fought for another 2+ years, but he was never the same. Retired in 1977. He became a pastor. He went to Houston and needed to build some funding for a gym that he wanted to open. And so he got advice from someone say, well, why don't you go back to boxing? So in 1987, he did. And he started that long, hard road and journey to get back into the ring. And he did so well that he ended up getting a heavyweight championship bout with Evander Holyfield in April of 1991. A really good 12-round bout. It was a really good example of a guy who, in Foreman, who was looking for that one shot, and he was going to be stationary. Because, and I learned that later on, he actually was able to take a good shot, not like the chin he had earlier in his career. But he was willing to take a shot in order to give one, and he was willing to take those shots so he can land that one key shot. I will get to that point a little later. But against that fight, against Holyfield in that fight, he never could get that one good shot off. He teed off on Holyfield, but he never really could get Holyfield in such trouble that you'd say, oh man, I think we may have a champion that's going to knock out this guy who's only 5 months in, and he's going to get knocked out by a then 42-year-old. Didn't happen. And he still kept going and still kept going and kept going. So here we are. And along the way, not only did Foreman become more lovable and a teddy bear, he was the people's champion, but he also sold grills. Yeah. Yeah. The George Foreman grill. He was not just a boxer. He also ended up becoming one of the greatest pitchmen to ever market a product. I mean, it's to the point where he marketed a grill so hard that he had his name on it. So he became beloved. The guy who was once feared and hated became one of the most beloved figures in sports. And so here's this fight, this opportunity that comes, this 12-round boxing match in Las Vegas. And here he is. He's fighting against this Brooklynite who relocated to Detroit. And they got it on. Now, Moore, he was a guy who wanted to press the issue. He fought similarly to a Joe Frazier, except Moore didn't really have that one signature shot. He had power, but he didn't have that one signature shot. Like Frazier would want to set you up for the left hook. Moore didn't have that type of shot, but he had power to mess you up. And one of the things that really made him so difficult to fight was that he was a southpaw. And for those who don't understand what that means, southpaw means he was left-handed, means he stood like this in the ring. And not only was he southpaw, but he loved using the right jab often. In fact, I think he used, in the fights that I've seen of him, he used the jab more than he used his left hand. I'm like, you left-handed, but you using that jab like it's it's one of those like it's one of those hammers, you know? It's like it's like you're trying to hit at a nail. And and one of his key tricks was he would do double jabs, all to make the presence that you would be caught off guard, and that you really didn't know what was coming because, well, you know, he was going to come at you with a left, but he still just stung you with these rights, and they were jabs, and normally jabs are setups, but it seemed like the jab was one of his primary weapons. And to me, it was the primary weapon in his bout earlier that year in April against Evander Holyfield, where he won the World Heavyweight Championship from. And he did so by pressing the issue and just keeping that jab front and center, and just and a guy who wanted to press forward in Holyfield himself just kept him off guard. And he could not really sustain an offensive uh, spurt. But in that fight, we saw some foreshadowing there too. In the second round, Holyfield knocked Moorer down. And he did so with a quick spurt. And we all learned that if you get a chance to hit him when he least expects it in a quick spurt, you may stand a chance of winning against him. But since he presses and he stands in a southpaw position, a right-hander has a difficult time lining that key shot to knock him out. Again, I'll get to that too later. So here we are. We get going, and the fight goes almost as planned for Moorer. For the exception of times when Foreman would sneak in a right, and maybe some jabs that snuck in there too. And Foreman was not known for throwing a lot of jabs. But later on in his career, he started to throw it a little more. Moorer, again, with the jabs, the double right jabs, and every now and then stinging him with the left. He again had Foreman, the right-hander and the orthodox boxer, off guard. It's like, doggone it, I'm looking for that left, but I keep getting stung with the right, to the point the jabs were getting to Foreman that his left eye was starting to swell. And then we get to the 10th round of this bout. And so starting in round 9, one of the greatest cornermen in the history of the game, Angelo Dundee, said to Foreman, slide a little bit to your right. Because if you do that, you get a chance to get off a left hook, and you probably be able to land a shot on him because he's not giving you the right. So you might as well pepper him with the left. Something Foreman never really did. But in this fight, he did. And it had some success in the 9th round. But in the 10th round, it had major success because that threw Moorer off. Threw him off badly. To the point where the southpaw stance turned almost a little more traditional. Not all the way orthodox, but traditional. Flat-footed. And with the punching power of a guy like Foreman, that's all he needed. And then 2 quick left-right combinations. The first one, Foreman saw some damage, but it didn't show right away. But he saw that he could land a good, solid shot on Moorer. And then a couple seconds later, the quick left jab, and right afterwards, a right cross with a turned fist put Moorer down for the count. And we had a new heavyweight champion in George Foreman at the age of 45. I find him remarkable. I always do find him remarkable. I think he's one of the greatest stories in sports history. I can't think of too many other stories that were greater than him, because there's so many stories, there's so many lessons that are deriving from him. One of them being perseverance, another being that you can be a man and change your ways, another being you can find the right spot if you are alert, or if you are alert enough to actually take it. Heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman, at 45. So we saw history made that night. And George Foreman becoming the oldest heavyweight champion, supplanting Jersey Joe Walcott, was done on this date in 1994. Now, if you want this shirt that you see right on this wonderful body of mine, well, the description box below has all the details. Now, I want to hear what you have to say. What is one of the shining moments of George Foreman's career in your mind? Was it the bouts he had with Frazier? Was it the thriller? Was it the Rumble in the Jungle where that was his greatest defeat, or was it the Evander Holyfield fight, or was it the Moore fight? In any case, I want to hear what you have to say. Like this video and comment below because your opinion does matter, VIP. And don't forget, hit the notification bell and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and get any and every premiere that comes out of it. Well, I am Cole Johnson, and this has been yet another installment of Cole Sports on the visual and on the daily.